All right, here we go with the finals of the North American Disney Lorcana Challenge. This will be a best of 5 series. Here you have Scott Markeson as the second seed playing Ruby Sapphire, doing those wild shuffles there against Edmond Chiu, who is on Ruby Amethyst as the fifth seed. So that means Scott will have the preference of being on the play or draw. Now, the commentators and everybody watching this probably think, and rightfully so, that Ed is very much favored in this matchup here. And you would be correct. That doesn't mean that it is a complete blowout, though, because Ruby Sapphire can do a lot of work. And if we pull up Scott's list here, if he is on Lucky Dime, which I don't think he is, that could be a card that could swing the matchup in his favor. Let me go back. Scott Markinson. No one-drop item, and he does have a Be Prepared in his hand, which is kind of a dead card. Not really good in this matchup because the Amethyst deck, particularly Ruby Amethyst, will outgrind you here. And yeah, Scott is not on the Lucky Dime. So he ends up inking a Visions of the Future, playing a Sail, getting the redraw there into a Hero, which is very good. And then is going to be able to ink another card. Probably the Dragon here. Yep, going to value keeping the Shark. But we know that Ruby Amethyst has a lot of answers, and Ed's deck is so well teched against Ruby Sapphire with all those Tremaines. Down comes the killer card in this matchup as well, just traditionally from traditional Ruby Sapphire builds in the Flynn Rider. Basically, Scott needs the Grammatala here to contest it. He could also just go for the Brawl, but that's a little underwhelming. If he had an Ice Block here as well, an Ice Block in combination with a Sisu would be able to take out this Flynn Rider. So this Flynn will not proc for sure. There's no way that Scott should let this happen, I would assume. So we're going to see the Inked Visions. Nope. You're going to ink the Shark. Valuing keeping the Visions for a later date, and has to brawl away that Flynn. And passes over to Ed. Ed draws more 1-drops, and he's got those double rabbits. Guys, I don't know, man. If you watched my meta reports and you watch my Ruby Amethyst breakdown where I talk about Rabbit just being the card, a lot of people were hyped up on Genie. I was like, I don't know, man. Like, Genie's good, but like Rabbit wins you a lot of matches, man. And this match in particular, Rabbit wins this matchup. Genie doesn't. Genie, I talked about this. I said, when I play Ruby Sapphire and people play Genie against me, I kill it every time. I Ice Block Sisu it, I Brawl it, I Big Sisu it, I Be Prepared. Like, I don't like. There was a time where I played like at least, I don't know, like 5 different decks with Genies in them, and not one of those 5 matches anybody got a quest off with the Genie against me. Like, Ruby Sapphire just has the answer. So Ed's deck not playing the Genies here is actually a huge plus. Instead, going for the 4 Tremaines, which are such higher impact cards. And so when you hear about, wow, Ruby Amethyst, this matchup, so good for Ed, these are the reasons why. The small Sisu comes in on Ed's side here, and you see Scott playing the grind game on the Ink side by trying to ramp and go for just some scry cards here. It's actually really good Visions, putting a lot of those what is now dead ramp cards on the bottom of the deck and taking a Popsicle, which will further give life to that Hiram in his hand. But you can see Ed, there's no question Ed knows what he needs to do in this matchup. He's going to be holding those Brawls for those Hirams until he gets those Sisus in rotation. Already on 5 lore. Yeah, this might be, oh man, this might be a 3-0. I'm not going to lie. But again, like I said, it's not over. Ed does need to maintain card advantage. You're going to see the Hiram come down, the Popsicle come down as well. And the only ink that Scott has is that Tamatoa. He's going to go ahead and ink it and pass the turn. Ed putting the pressure on. Ed is, I know Ed is just like, I feel very, very comfortable here. Yeah, as expected, the Brawl comes through. Ed's playing very fast because he knows exactly what he needs to do in this match. Scott here, on the other hand, feeling the pressure, is going to be able to be prepared, but that's not going to do much when your opponent is going to draw 2 off of Rabbit and Diablo, especially since he's got Rabbit and Bounce in hand. Literally the Merlin Mim package, the bane of set 2, the tier 0 meta, still proving all these sets later to be extremely powerful in this game still. A lot of people were complaining about Ruby Sapphire. Well, if you want to beat it, here's your answer. There is, oh man, and having to ink the Hiram here is not great. But Scott cannot let another 3 lore come through on the board. Ed knows immediately, he's like, I'm drawn too. The be prepared is short, and you know Ed is very, very happy to see that Hiram into the inkwell. That is 2 Hirams out of 4 gone from the match, limiting Ruby Sapphire's options here for the card draw. And Ed is firmly in command, just following up with a single rabbit, not overextending at all. This is a good position for Scott to play out a big Sisu, but he might just opt to play the how far I'll go. Yeah, Ed is just, he's just smiling right now. Ed is, I mean, you know, you can't get over cocky, of course, overconfident. You can't think that it's away from you, dude. Did Scott like fight somebody? He's got some red knuckles there. I just noticed that. Anyways, yeah, he does end up just hard casting the how far I'll go. I thought this might be an option because the one lore that the rabbit represents is manageable for now. The redraw off of the popsicle, hey, that's a pretty good one. Being able to utilize all your ink for the turn in another Visions of the Future. He probably has to take that. Okay, I was going to say maybe you would take the Tamatoa here, but he takes the ice block. He's putting that hideaway to the bottom of the deck, though, and you know that Ed is on the libraries. And that is another card that really hurts in this matchup. We didn't even talk about that. But the library is definitely a very powerful card against Ruby Sapphire. Them just not having an instant out to it except for that hideaway. And it gaining lore every turn. He might... Okay, he's going to go Fox to just... Yeah, he's playing the slow game, playing the grind game, playing what he knows. He knows he will outgrind this deck. He knows his opponent is not on the Lucky Dimes. Ed on 7 ink now and a full grip of cards in hand, feeling very comfortable. His opponent on 0 lore, despite going first on that 8 ink, still no real way to gain control of the board. And this is what Ruby Amethyst will do to Ruby Sapphire. Ed exerting the maximum amount of punishment possible. This is how, I mean, I don't even know, like, what are you digging for? What are you trying to hope to get? I mean, he gets a Hiram. That's actually really good. That's going to be Hiram number 3, which Ed is holding double brawl for. He knows, I just got to deal with these Hirams, and then you are a sitting duck in the water. Play out the ice block here to target the rabbit and then take it out. That's, I think, the second rabbit gone. So on Scott's side, he's going to be counting the rabbits, and on Edmond's side, he's going to be counting the Hirams. But unfortunately, as we've mentioned many times already in this matchup, Ed just is going to be able to outgrind you. Like, he has way more draw than just a rabbit, whereas the Ruby Sapphire player only has the Hiram. The draw cards, or the scry cards, I guess you could say, on the Ruby Sapphire side, not nearly as powerful as these just raw draw engines of the Amethyst deck here. Yep, now you can just slowly grind away, play out the Diablo along with that, and pass the turn. Still on 7 ink, no need to ink aggressively here. Keep that goat in hand. You've got the Tremaines for the big threats. The Queen of Hearts here not going to do anything into this board. It is just not great for Scott. He's going to have to play the Hiram here, and Ed's going to be very happy to see that because he knows he's got the Brawl and the Tremaine for it if he wants. I would imagine, so if Ed is, I mean, the opponent's on 0, so I imagine you would probably value playing the Brawl here just to get some utility off of Brawl, since unless you're going to ink it, it doesn't really have too much value other than hitting the Hirams. And then save your Tremaine for bigger threats like the Sisus and the Tamatoas that are going to come down. But we'll see. Like, this is just going to be decimation, honestly. And you know what's funny is Scott actually, like, their plays have actually been okay. Like, they've seen 3 Hirams, they've seen multiple popsicles. Like, that's what you want as a Ruby Sapphire player. So he's hitting what he wants to hit. visions at this point. It's just that his high impact cards, like the big Sisus and stuff, aren't going to give him the mileage that it would give him in other matchups. Especially with the library. Like the library, if you lose cards, just gives you even more gas. Inks the Flynn because he knows it's beyond the point where Flynn can be useful. He knows his opponent is going to have the answers to wipe boards and small characters. So as expected, Ed does play out the Brawl here, keeping the Sisu, or not Sisu, the Tremaine, I mean, in hand for a more meaningful interaction. Moves the Diablo to the library and passes turn. Go ahead and drop that big Sisu. I will draw 3 cards, 1 off Diablo, 1 off Merlin, and 1 off the library, and my Mimfox lives. You can trade your Mimfox into my, or trade your Grammatala into my Mimfox, but then you're only left with your big Sisu on board, and you know I'm playing 4 Tremaine, so then my Tremaine just comes in and does what it's put in the deck to do, which is absolutely wipe out those big questing characters on the Ruby Sapphire side. This is going to be rough. Yeah, Scott knows he's really up against it here. All his big characters coming down, he knows are going to be super vulnerable. He cannot let this board live. He has to play. I mean, that's actually not bad because it forces your opponent to have interaction for the Grandma. Because Scott is trying to play around the Tremaine, which obviously Ed has. Ed's drawn so many cards and he plays 4 Tremaines. So Ed already at 13. Holy moly. Really, Ed? I find that very surprising that he would do that. But I'm not going to question the man. He's in prime position to become your North American Disney Lorcana champion here. Move to the library. Challenge the... No. Yes? Wait. Oh, he had 6 ink. I thought he only had 5. Okay. Yeah, so don't move to the library because you need the ink in order to play the Tremaine. So he outs his whole board. Ed playing super safe, despite his opponent being on 0 and him being on 14. Like, Ed, come on, man. You don't need to BM. You don't need to slow roll. But obviously being a very smart player. Look at that full grip of cards. That is fine. Pass the turn. Another Tremaine will hit the board on Ed's side for sure. Oh my gosh. You know, there's even an argument to say, like, you don't even bounce the Tremaine. He's going to play Rabbit first because he's on 10 ink. Yep. Oh no, he's on 9 ink and then ink for 10 and then play the Tremaine. Yeah, you don't even bounce. You don't even bother bouncing with the snake because you have another Tremaine in hand anyways. Draw 1, ice block Tremaine, play another Sisu. And continue to lose to the library. Draw 1, pass turn, draw again, and continue to outgrind Ruby Sapphire. Make them use up all their interactions until they have nothing left. The library slowly grinds away the lore, and you'll either win passively or you'll just start closing the game out with goat bounces. It doesn't really matter. I feel for Scott here. He knows. I mean, Ed has a pile of ink. He's got a pile of cards in his hand. And the single Ruby Amethyst player to make it into top 8 or top 16 is in prime position to take game number 1 against Ruby Sapphire. 6 of them in the top 16. Only 1 remains. Statistically, very good chance that they would have made it to the top. Ed, very efficient with his ink, playing out a Sisu, a Tremaine, and moving to the library. I think Scott put the third Sisu on the bottom of his deck, so he does not have any more. He does have a Be Prepared, which I'm sure Ed is accounting for. And Ed will draw 2. He just reveals the game in his hand, says I don't even need to draw, and he closes out the game. Victory for Ruby Amethyst. On to game number 2. Ed might just take all 3 games on the draw.